Wyoming traveler here on a windy but relatively warm day. I am here at the monument to the Grattan Massacre. The Grattan Massacre did not take place here near the monument. In fact, it took place right about there, just forward of the tree line. It wasn't so tragic, and its consequences even more tragic. The event could be considered a comedy of errors. The story began in August 1854 near Fort Laramie in present-day Wyoming. A series of events occurred, culminating in a bloody massacre of U.S. soldiers and the start of a war which lasted until 1877 and ended with another tragic massacre in 1890. As with all stories, the best place to begin is at the beginning. In 1841, a wagon road had been carved from western Missouri to the Pacific coast, known as the Oregon, California, or Mormon Trail, depending on where the travelers were headed. It is collectively called the Immigrant Trail. The U.S. government authorized the construction of 3 forts along the trail to protect the travelers. As part of this project, the government purchased an old trading post at the junction of the North Platte and the Laramie rivers and called the military post Fort Laramie. In 1851, a great council was held near Fort Laramie, the Fort Laramie Treaty of 1851. At this council, it was agreed the U.S. government would pay the Plains tribes an annual sum of goods for passing through their territory. The tribes agreed to live peacefully among themselves and not harass the travelers traveling the trail. Now, in August 1854, all the factors, settlers, soldiers, Indians, and annuity goods were coming together at Fort Laramie, and it was not good. Arapahoe, Cheyenne, and Lakota bands, numbering in the thousands, had gathered at Fort Laramie to pick up their annual annuity goods. The absence of the Indian agent delayed the distribution of these goods. Picture the situation. It is late summer. Immigrants passing through have frightened off a lot of the game, and their livestock have eaten much of the grass. Thousands of Indians arrive with their tens of thousands of horses. They are forced to travel miles from their camp to find game to eat and grass for their horses. They want to obtain their annuity goods and leave for the fall buffalo hunt. The garrison of the fort is small, about 100 men, under the command of a young and not very competent commander. Also within the garrison is a young, ambitious, and less competent lieutenant. A wagon train of Mormon immigrants from Denmark heading to Utah are also in the area. In the wagon train's livestock is a skinny, lame cow. The story now becomes confusing. Some accounts claim the cow was abandoned. Other accounts say the owner was attempting to lead the cow back to the wagons and it ran into the Indian camp. Still other accounts state the cow wandered into the Indian camp on its own. Either way, the results were the same. High forehead, a Miniconjou brave, kills and butchers the cow. The cow's owner reported the incident to the commander at Fort Laramie, First Lieutenant Hugh Fleming, and demanded $25 in compensation. The next day, Conquering Bear, head of the Burley band, reported the incident also to Lieutenant Fleming and offered a horse for payment of the cow, which the owner rejected. The owner at this point disappears from history, presumably heading with the wagon train to Utah. Lieutenant Fleming asks Conquering Bear to arrest High Forehead. Conquering Bear refuses, stating two reasons. He has no authority over a Miniconjou, and to take action against High Forehead, a visitor to his band, would violate Lakota tradition of hospitality. The next day, August 19th, Lieutenant Fleming, urged by his second-in-command, Second Lieutenant John Grattan, sends Grattan to the Lakota camp to arrest High Forehead. By all accounts, Second Lieutenant John Grattan was an ambitious, brash young man, ready for a fight. Worst, he had contempt for the Indians and their fighting ability. Grattan departs with a force of 29 enlisted men, 2 cannon, and an interpreter, Lucien Auguste. Auguste was not on good terms with anyone in the area, Indians or whites. In fact, a few weeks before, Grattan had called Augustine a coward because he had not fought a group of Cheyenne who had stolen some of Augustine's cattle. To make the situation worse, Augustine was drunk. Well, this is not the exact site of the battle, which actually took place about 2 miles up there on the horizon. We're going here. You can imagine this is pretty much what it would have looked like, minus the road marks, when Grattan came to demand payment for the cow. Now kind of imagine this field filled with 600 Lakota lodges. Upon reaching the Indian encampment, Grattan may have realized the seriousness of the situation. The encampment contains 700 lodges and may have housed over 1,200 warriors, along with many thousand women, children, both of the Ogallala and Brule bands. What happened next is not clear. Eyewitness accounts are confusing and sometimes conflicting. The basic story, however, follows this account. On the way, Grattan stopped to consult with James Bordeaux, a local trader. Bordeaux tells Grattan to negotiate with Conquering Bear. Grattan has his men load their muskets and fix bayonets and marches into the Burley camp. All the while, Augustine is riding through the village, harassing, threatening, and insulting the Indians. Grattan, with Augustine as translator, attempts to get Conquering Bear to arrest High Forehead, who refuses to surrender to the soldiers. Conquering Bear continues to negotiate for the cow. Confusion exists among the men, and Conquering Bear asks for Bordeaux to come and translate. Bordeaux later states that he saw the situation was out of hand and departed for his trading post. Grattan had his troops formed up on each side of the cannons. Meanwhile, out of Grattan's sight, Lakota warriors were forming up for battle. Ending the discussion with Conquering Bear, Grattan returned to his command, and then all hell broke loose. 2 soldiers fired at the surrounding Indians. The cannons fired on the village, but were aimed too high and only shot off the tops of the lodges. The full detachment of soldiers then fired, mortally wounding Conquering Bear. The angry warriors quickly killed Grattan, 11 soldiers, and Augustine. The remaining soldiers retreated, but were cut down and killed. One badly wounded soldier was able to escape and hide, but died at the fort the next day. The enraged warriors plundered all the trading posts within the area, but did not harm Bordeaux or the other traders. Later, some of the warriors rode against Fort Laramie and ran off some of the stock. They were persuaded by their chiefs not to attack the remaining soldiers, which numbered about 50. 3 days later, the Lakota left the area and returned to their hunting grounds in the north. Lieutenant Fleming asked Bordeaux to arrange for the burial of Grattan and his command. Bordeaux and his burial party found the soldiers had been horribly mutilated, and identification was almost impossible. Grattan's body was only identified by his watch. He had been shot with over 30 arrows. The soldiers were buried in a mass grave near the battle site. Grattan's body was returned to the fort for burial. Several years later, the soldiers' remains were exhumed and reburied at Fort McPherson National Cemetery. Grattan's remains were reinterred at Fort Leavenworth National Cemetery. Following the fight, the eastern newspapers were having a field day with sensational, if not accurate, stories. The Army started planning retaliation against the guilty Indians. Lieutenant Fleming would soon be replaced, and his military career ended. He was never given another independent command. During the Civil War, while most of his classmates rose to general and colonel ranks, Fleming was relegated to nondescript backwater post. He retired from the Army as a captain. The Army came back with a vengeance. A year later, General William Harney attacked the village of Little Thunder, conquering Bear's successor at Ash Hollow. This engagement will be the subject of a future video. The Grattan Massacre set into motion a war between the U.S. and the Arapahoe, Cheyenne, and Lakota alliance for the next 22 years, a war that did not end until the aftermath of the Battle of the Little Bighorn, all because of a cow. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope that you enjoyed it. Please give it a thumbs up, like, and subscribe if you have not.